Today I'm going to show you how to use Adobe Illustrator to create a character that you'll easily be able to import into Adobe Premiere or Adobe After Effects and animate, which is our next step in our project. So follow my instructions and you'll have yourself a nice little caricature of yourself that you'll be able to animate later. So first, let me close this. Doop. You're probably not going to have a document open. You're probably going to get this screen. So choose, I don't know, this is kind of subjective, but I'm just going to choose letter and it should open and you have a blank document. Now, first, let's create a shape to represent our head. Now, there are a few shapes available. I'm just going to go real easy. We're just going to go with this ellipse tool. Now, ellipse is a fancy way of saying circle or oval. And there's my head, basically. Looks like my head, right? It's roundish. But there's a problem. You'll notice that it has a black outline. And actually, I don't want a black outline. I just want like a head-shaped, a Peter-shaped, Professor Swarovski-shaped, circle. So here are the ways we control the color that a shape is filled in with and the outline. This is called the stroke, by the way. So reason being that this blue stuff is path. We call that a path. In Illustrator, we work a lot with paths. And then so you don't always have to have them like stroked with a color. So that's an option, but they call it a stroke because it's like you have the path and then like magically when you hit stroke, you like stroke it. But we don't want one, so we're going to go, here's how you control the colors, the fill and the stroke. I don't want a stroke. I just want like a pinkish orangish kind of circle. So I'm going to select the stroke and I'm going to click this little symbol here with a little red slash through it. That means none. And you'll notice the stroke is gone. But you will notice that the object is still there. The path is there. And I want to give it a fill color. So here's the fill color, this little square here. So double click that. And you're going to get the color selector. I'm going to choose, I don't know, what color is my head? Kind of orangish. I don't know. Yeah, it's like something around there. There we go. That looks like me. And now we have like we have a circle. Now you're starting to detect already, well, if I were drawing something, I certainly wouldn't go about it this way, right? If you were drawing something, you wouldn't just do a circle because then you'd have to draw a hat, over it or glasses. And it wouldn't look right because you'd see the circle under it. That's because Adobe Illustrator works quite differently from the way our brains tend to work because we live our whole lives with crayons and colored pencils and paintbrushes and pens and pencils. And that works completely differently from the way Adobe Illustrator works. Illustrator works a lot more like a paper cutter. So I don't know if you've ever seen in some Asian countries like China and Japan, paper cutting is a real fine art. They take, the artists take paper, like construction paper, and they take a real like tiny X-Acto knife and they cut these very, very intricate shapes and then they position them on their artboard in such a way that some of them are some of these artists are just so talented and they're magnificent. But that's a totally different art, right? I mean, like you're creating shapes and you're arranging them on your artboard. You're not just drawing the shape because then it's like once you draw it, it's there. You can't pick it up and move it. Well, that's the way Illustrator works like a paper cutter, is you create all these different shapes and you can move them around independently. But the only problem is you can't really create them like freehand, like your drawing program that a lot of computers come with. You have to create them with like pen tools or like shape tools. Yeah, it takes some getting used to. Don't feel bad for being frustrated. It's frustrating at first, but we'll try to make it as easy as possible. So you should have a circle for your head. Now let's, since you're probably going to give it hair, and I'm going to give mine a hat, let's move down a little bit and create a few more ellipses. But this time, I'm going to give it a different color. So click the color again. Here we go. My eyes are blue, so I'll give it a little blue color. And then go ahead and create yourself some eyes. Now, before you click off, just Control-C and Control-V, and you'll have another eye pasted. Same exact shape. Makes it easy, right? Instead of having to draw another oval and guess at the size. Now click this arrow and we can move it right over. Now our pen tool will come in handy. I know you all love the pen tool and are super good at using it now, right? Good. So now we don't want to fill color with our pen tool because I'm going to give myself a smiley face. But if I try to do that, look how I didn't really want that to happen. I didn't want that like filled area. Hit enter to cut off that little string at the end of your pen when you're done using it. But I don't want that fill area. Well, that's because I didn't complete the shape. It's not what they call a closed path. We call that an open path. And we can get rid of that just by clicking fill and then clicking that none. And there it is. It's gone. But I do want a stroke. So I'm going to click the stroke there, and I'm going to click color. That's what you want to do too. There we go. And you know what? It didn't work. Hold on. Oh, okay. Actually, I forgot. It's still selecting none, so go ahead and click that. And it'll let you. This little button here will let you choose a color. Now you can choose a color. If you want any line in your picture to be a little thicker, just choose the stroke or choose the path, and then up at the top there are options, and you can bring the thickness of the stroke up. So I'm gonna leave mine right there. Now, you should be pretty well equipped to create your character, however you want. Use the pen, use the shapes, and create yourself a little character. I'm just going to go ahead and make my character and put the video on fast forward right now so you can sort of watch, but it's not slow. So anyway, here we go. Oh, you know what? Scratch that. I forgot to tell you that once you create one object, so that my head here, that's going to be one object. You want to keep this arrow circled, drag like this. Okay, so you have it all selected. You have the smile, the eyes, and your head. Right click on it, and there's going to be a little word called group. Click on group. Now the reason is if we don't click on group, these are not really like one object. See, I can drag them around independently, and that's not. I mean, that's not too bad. It's because we want to be one object. We could just select the whole shebang and then move it around. But if we get other objects on the screen, that gets really difficult because then we'll accidentally grab a bunch of other stuff. So if we just right click and say group, now it's always going to be treated like one big object. Even if we grab the eye, yep, still just moving the one object. So very handy. Now, since my head is one object, I'm going to create, I think. Because I think in this video I will want my arms to move separately. The mouth would have been nice, but that might be going a little too far. So I think I want just the arm, just probably one of my arms. I'm going to make my character walk in and wave. So I'm just going to create the hat and make that all one head object, but we want the body to be another like separate independent thing. Well, we're going to create the body on another layer. So over on the right-hand side, you should have a palette called Layers. If you do not see the Layers palette on your screen, go to Window and find it. Layers. Mine has a check mark next to it because I'm already using it. If you're not seeing yours, it probably doesn't have a check mark. So click it and it should appear. Now, think of layers like tracing paper. You know how you can lay a piece of tracing paper, draw something, lay another piece of tracing paper and draw something else, and you can sort of see it all. It's the same thing here. I'm going to create another layer with this little create new layer button here. And you'll see, oh, layer 1, layer 2. Get used to naming your layers names that make sense. By one head, I'm going to call this one body. It doesn't seem important now, but when you have 30 of these things, it's super helpful because otherwise, I'm going to create myself a little body. I'm going to use the pen tool. You can use whatever you'd like. I'm going to suggest a pen tool. Let's kind of make our characters similar, folks. So I'm going to make him sort of like a little a game piece. So I just completed the shape of the little body here, but you'll notice there's a problem. It's over the head, right? Well, think of the paper cutter. This is just an example of the paper cutter having the body piece of paper on top of the head. Well, it's easy for the paper cutter to change, right? You just, you just do that. And that's what we're about to do in the layers palette. Over here, you'll see that body is on top of head in the what we call the stacking order. Just drag body down below the head, and there you go. That doesn't look good because they're exactly the same color. But we're going to fix that. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and make this gray because I tend to wear a lot of gray. There we go. Now it's starting to look like a person, right? And so we're going to do some decorations over here, but and I'll do that later. But now I want to create another layer, and I want you to do the same thing. Oops. You know what? Go ahead and put that. Go ahead and put this layer at the bottom, by the way. It's going to be for the arms. No, just one arm, just one arm. So let's call it arm. Go ahead and do the same thing. Now create an arm. Now here's a tricky part. The hand, you'll notice, is on top of the sleeve, but actually, oh, you know what? I did want that. But you might be wondering at some point, well, what if I have an object, like two separate objects on the same layer? See, they're on the same layer. But like, say if I wanted this hand to go below the sleeve. Well, if you unfold or you click this little arrow to reveal the elements of that one layer, you'll see that they also, just even different objects in the layer, have a stacking order. And you can adjust that. So I'm going to drag this arm to be above the hand, and there you go. See, now it's on top. I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to put it back, but you may run into that problem. Okay. So I'm going to continue building my character, and then when I encounter a place where I should, give you some tips, then I'm going to stop the video and direct you. But in the meantime, I'm going to fast forward the video and just build so you can watch and then stand by. Here's a little tip. If you want to duplicate a piece, you can select it. I'm gonna group this together as well. Now I'm going to Control C and Control V to paste. But I don't need two left arms, right? So I'm going to right click, choose Transform, Reflect, and in this case, we're going to do it vertically. I know that is kind of confusing, but trust me, if you want it to do this, whoosh, whoosh, you choose vertical because it's like putting a hinge vertically on your thingy that you want to flip. If you turned it horizontal, it's like putting a hinge this way, so your object would go like whoosh, whoosh, kind of like that, if that makes sense. Might not. Anyway, so there it is. Have the same arm flipped. Okay, back to fast forward. Side note, I'm not happy that I put these little legs in the arm layer, so I'm moving them up to body there, just by dragging and dropping. Moving the legs into the body layer. That's weird. Worked for one, but not for the other. Oh, ah! And there we go. All is good. Oh, also I don't like the fact that I have both arms in one group. I want one to move and the other one to not move when we animate it. So I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to drag it to the bottom. I'm going to drag one of those arms into it. And there it is. I'm going to call one right arm, the other left arm. Here's another side note. If you create something and you select it with this little arrow, just called the selection tool, and you go up to the corner, just outside of it, you can, if you touch the corner, you can adjust the size, which is kind of nifty. And then if you go just outside that, it'll give you these arrows. You can tilt it one way or the other. That's pretty handy. So my character ended up looking more like a weird Captain Crunch, more like him than me. But we have the essential elements. Is we have his head on one layer. Oh, and by the way, do you see these little eyeballs here that I'm hovering over with my cursor? Is you can press the eyeball on it, and it will make it invisible. It's still there, so you can make it visible again. But in case you want to just see the picture with without that part, the body is gone, or the eyeball. I'll turn the eyeball off for the arms, or left arm, or right arm, left arm. And so we have everything on different layers here, and that's what we'll need, because now we'll be able to animate the head separately, the body separately, and each arm separately. And that's next week. So in the meantime, have fun making your own little caricature of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Oh, I almost forgot. Go up to File, right here, and go to Save As. I'm just going to do it on my desktop. And save as an Adobe Illustrator file. Call it something like me. I'm just going to call mine me. Save. And then, it'll ask you something. Just say okay. Usually it's fine. And then send me that file. Email that file to me as an attachment. If you don't know how to send an email with an attachment, just ask your big people. They probably know. So anyway, okay, I'm signing off this time. Talk to you soon.